Alright, so what I'm going to show you is how I'm actually changing the color of these bricks. So you can see the original dirty coat that I did just to get in the grout lines. And now I have my mixture on my paintbrush, and what I'm doing is I'm going over and I'm following the shape of the brick. So as you can see, this brick here is kind of shaped like a little bit of a Tetris piece. So I'm trying to follow the shape of the brick and do a mixture of smoothing out the color as well as blending it out. When I first put the paint on, you can see it was a little bit more wet. I use as much as I can in one area and another, but I make sure to really try not to go over those grout lines. If I do in some areas, like up here, I can go over that after with a toothpick rather. I apply the dye and then I work it around to even it out. I don't want to have it too wet or too dry. I'm actually doing a mix of wet and dry brushing. When I first put the ink on, the dye is pretty wet and I don't want anything to run here. I'm trying to make a nice smooth, almost pastel looking finish for these old bricks. So I smoothly blend it out. And by going over it as well, I'm doing my best to get rid of brush strokes. In a few places like over here, they're visible, and so I try and go back in the opposite direction. The really light touch and really try and blend them out. What I'm using for dye, it's hard to see in this light here. I have an hot light on, but it's reflecting. As my palette, I have this old insert from, I think it was hors d'oeuvres, like little mini quiches, actually, and this mixture here in the center is what I'm using as my dye. It's actually a mix of a few different things. As a base, I have some Wilton white. I use it very often just to give depth to the gel colors when I need some kind of opaqueness in the color. Otherwise, they're pretty translucent when you're trying to use them as a paint. I have some Americolored chocolate brown. I probably have, I'm not even using full drops. I have like a centimeter coated on a this much. I have this much of a toothpick's worth of dye. I can't focus on that. Anyways, I have this much brown in there. I have a little bit of my original wash, which was this one that I made this morning. It's got 1 drop of black, 1 drop of brown, and it originally had 6 ml of water. So I just dabbed a little bit of that just to dirty up the color a little bit. I probably have about 3 or 4 drops of white, even though you can't see it. It's kind of, I can show you underneath, the white kind of pools on the bottom. It's not that great to see. And the colors do separate. The water is rising to the top with the dye in it, but that's fine because I want the blending, I want the different colors coming up so that it's not completely uniform everywhere. I have a small touch you can see here on the edge. I dabbed in a little bit of Wilton Lemon Yellow. That's this little pot over here. And a little bit of Wilton Brown as well, and a little bit of water just coming in from the morning's dye pot. The brushes I'm using are food safe only. I don't use them ever on anything else. And as I said, I'm doing a mixture of wet and dry brushing. So when I first come on, the paint, the ink paint is, I didn't get enough there. When I first come on, it is a little wet. You can see here. It's not wet enough to drip, but it's blending because the water in the first coat I did this morning almost makes like a plasticky kind of finish on the fondant. And as I keep going over it, it dries pretty quickly and it's starting to feel tacky even as I move it around. It's starting to feel rough. As I move it, I can feel the grit kind of coming up. As the paint that I'm using is drying, the white really gives it that graininess, kind of. But the water, the moisture is kind of melting the fondant underneath. So it's really like, if I touch it, it's pretty tacky. You can see it's even lifting the color up. So what started off as kind of wet painting is now becoming mostly like dry brushing. I'm moving stuff around. It takes a lot more effort at this point, but that's what really helps get rid of the brush strokes and create the mottled look. It's difficult to see with this light. You can see here what it looked like before with just the dirty coat covering it for the grout lines. and this is a closer look to what the finished bricks are going to look like. The bricks in the game, I can't focus on the screen there, the bricks in the game are more uniform, like that. Up in the corner it's more beige. I don't know why it's showing blue on my screen. And if I cover my light here, no, you're not getting good light. The light here is horrible, but you can get a better idea of the before and the after. When I first start doing it, it looks really bad. My colors were off at first down here. You can see it's too light. I'm going to cover them up with some grass later. When you first start, it really does look off. It looks weird that you have this, all of a sudden, this light beige kind of color, and it looks mottled and off. The more you do, when you can start to get a sense of how it's going to look like old rocks, like old bricks has been there for a long time, and it really makes a big difference when you kind of step back a bit and take a look at it. So that's the process to get from the original carving to the dirty grout wash of color, and then now the light mixture. Hopefully this is helpful. If you want more videos, if you find that they're helpful compared to just the pictures on the blog, let me know, and I'll start adding more videos as part of my tutorials, and that's about it. Thanks for watching.